Hey everyone, Francis here from What a Hell of a Way to Die. If you've been wondering how you can support myself and Nate here on the show, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/hellofawaytodie. Joining the Patreon at any level gets you access to our Discord server, one bonus episode a month, and early access to interviews. At the $5 level, you'll get more bonus content and an opportunity to vote on monthly Zoo Crew episodes. And at the $10 and up level, you'll get exclusive stickers, patches, and pins sent out to you every quarter. Your support means that we can keep our regular episodes free and make sure we don't have to rely on advertisers. If you can, please consider joining and supporting your two favorite veteran dads.
Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. He ain't gonna jump no more.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It is DadChat with Francis and Greg from the fantastic Brigham Young Money Podcast. Greg, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be able to still valor for the rest of my life.
I let Greg know that technically because he's working at a veteran-owned podcast or veteran-run podcast.
Veteran-run business. We have an LLC, man. We're buttoned up.
So, Greg, I have a question. First off, your bona fides. How many kids you got?
I just got the one. I got a 6-year-old boy in kindergarten right now.
So, I have a question for you, and this is going to be one that my wife and I have been kind of rummaging around our heads. You are ex-Mormon, correct?
I am, yes.
Yeah. So you were raised in the church. I am ex-Catholic. I was raised, I went to Jesuit schools. I went to Catholic schools. I went to Mass up until Mom said, legally, I can't force you to do this anymore. And I stopped going to Mass. So, we have this and I always joke about how we are culturally Catholic. We may not be Catholic, but we know all of the rules. We've been to the fish fries, and you have the same thing with, your past. You may not believe in the Mormon faith anymore, but there is a culture to it that you are a part of. So how are you planning to are you planning to impart that on your kid? Because you live in Utah, so it's kind of hard to miss it regardless. So I was wondering, what's your plan there? Are you going to teach a kid about Jesus?
I think this is actually, I can kind of extrapolate this and talk more about just my parenting philosophy overall. And that is that I really do try to be as much of a consultant. I know that's kind of like a gross, icky word. But I really do try to do that for my kid. I try to compartmentalize things in two ways of affordable and unaffordable mistakes. He rides his bike, goes a little too fast and crashes. That's an affordable mistake. It's going to hurt. He's going to remember that, and then he'll have that muscle memory, and he's not going to do that again. But I'm not going to let him ride his bike in the middle of traffic because that's an unaffordable mistake. But I always try to present my kid with a number of options. Hey, you can do it this way, you can do it this way, or you can do it this way. I can't make that decision for you. I can tell you what it is that I would do. And if I was in your position, but ultimately that decision is up to you. And then I'm going to hold you accountable for that decision. And you're going to have to face those repercussions, whatever they may be. So with the religion thing, it's completely unavoidable in Utah. All of us joke about, you talk about how you're culturally Catholic. I'm ethnically Mormon.
Yeah.
And we'll always be ethnically Mormon.
It is way more of a DNA thing, I think, for the Mormons. It is an ingrained, stamped on your...
It's an identity. It really is. It's so much more than a religion. It is a personality. It is who you are.
Yeah, Catholicism is Sundays. You go to Mass, you go to confession, you go to church on Christmas and Easter. Maybe you try Lent, maybe you don't. But it's very casual, especially Americans. I'm not speaking for all Catholics. There are people who take it, but the people who like me who were raised in the Catholic Church, and I'm not a trad convert or anything like that. It was a very casual kind of relationship with. Even though I went to Jesuit school, even though I went to Catholic schools, there's still a very casual relationship with it. But Mormonism doesn't have that. It feels.
No, it really doesn't. I will say there is a little bit of nuance depending on where it is that you live. Like out of state, Mormons tend to be a bit more casual and have a little bit more of like a worldly view on things, a different perspective. One of the things we talk about a lot on BYM and some of like the really interesting problems that arise in Utah is because it is so it's so protected. It's so much of a bubble. And it's so insular and it's so homogenous that you can go days, if not weeks, without seeing anybody who doesn't look exactly like you or believe in the same thing or is a part of your church. And with that, like you don't get a lot of differing opinions. And so when I'm raising my kid, it's going to be hard to not face that. We live in a little bit more of like a liberal enclave here in Salt Lake. It's like the one, blue dot in a deeply blood red state. So there is a little bit more of an outside presence. But again, it's inevitable. And like how you go to the fish fries, like Easter was just here and we went to the Mormon church for the Easter egg hunt. And so ultimately I will have to have a conversation with my son and be like, hey, this is why I left the Mormon church. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Here are the reasons why. It's not what I believe in, but if this is what you want to do, I'm not going to hold that against you. And I'm not going to tell you not to do that. I will tell you what I would do in this situation, but that's it. And luckily with him being 6, we haven't had to cross that bridge yet, but I do know that it's inevitable.
Yeah, my mother is still a very good Catholic woman, but I am blessed by having 2 very liberal, left-leaning parents who, in their 80s, have never had cable TV, like never had it, never wanted it. So no brainworms from Fox News or anything like that.
You're so lucky.
I know. I understand the privilege that I speak from on my 82-year-old father, who is still completely independent. My 80-year-old mother, who is also completely independent, have all of their, haven't lost their marbles any more than like when I was growing up. My father's memory is as bad as it ever was, which was, always not great, which I am having that happen to me. I'm slowly becoming him as we all do. Yeah. But my very Catholic mother, she got me because my daughter really likes graphic novels. So she got like a graphic novel thing of the Bible. And, the thing is that with the Bible, where I don't feel a need to teach the religious parts of it, but like there's so many stories that are just like ingrained in American, side, like Jonah and the whale. We all know that. We all know
parables.
The Good Samaritan, things like that. Those are things that are just like inherently like you pick them up because we are, we're not obviously we're not a Christian nation, but we are very heavily Bible oriented. Yeah. And those stories and everything permeate everything. They permeate American culture to a point where, you just pick it up. So I've been trying to be like, okay, how do I explain and what do you explain? Like, which are the big ones? Noah is a big one just because, she's gonna see a Precious Moments figurine of Noah at some point. She's like, what's with all these sad children on a boat? I'm like, well, there's been a lot of sad children on boats, but these children are happy for some reason. I don't know. Let me tell you, there's a fucked place I'll take you if you ever come to Missouri. Is the Precious Moments Chapel.
I think, one of the things, because I've actually thought about this, and I think, when we do have to cross that bridge, one way that I think I will be explaining things is like, don't take like the literal interpretation of this kind of stuff and kind of understand more the point of the metaphor that it's making, or like Jonah and the whale, it's more about faith and seeing things through and believing than it is about, like actually, sitting in the belly of a whale for 3 days.
Right. As God makes it spit you up. So you do the thing like Jonah and the whale is the perfect parable for like the whale spits you out and you finally have to make that phone call or send that email that you,
exactly.
that you haven't been wanting to do. Like you have to really kind of break those parables down to like No, it used to be you would get eaten by a fish and then spit up somewhere so you can go spread the word of God. But now it's, sending an email. It's the same amount of difficulty, though.
Yeah. So I think, when we actually get into like religious text is understanding the context and understanding the meaning behind that. Because, as silly as I may find the Bible and the Book of Mormon at times, I also do think that there are some pretty decent life lessons, and it's also one of the things that I'm grateful for when it comes to, growing up in the LDS church. While I have a lot of problems with the church, and while I think a lot of it is just extremely historically inaccurate and racist, there are certain things that I think that you can contextualize and realize that like there are good things about it, honesty, being virtuous, whatever that means, taking care of yourself, being family oriented, things like that. And I think, you can kind of take the good with the bad. And those are the lessons that I'm sure I will be talking to my son about as he gets older.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, the 10 Commandments are all, other than the ones that are God-centric.
Basic stuff.
Yeah, just like don't kill, don't steal, don't get jealous of all your neighbor's cool shit. Like be happy with what you have, or strive for something. Yeah, it's the same. There's these. The problem with religion is the people. Like if we just took the book, if you just took this book where you read these 4 Gospels of Jesus, and he's doing all this cool stuff, and he's walking around saying, wouldn't it be cool if we were nice to everybody and we nailed him to a tree because of it? Those are all great like life lessons that my wife and I both just like, we want to teach the teacher of Jesus, but like the Son of God thing, this seems, but he had some great ideas that were written down. And unfortunately, a bunch of people said, that's cool, we're going to use this as an excuse to be shitty to everybody.
And I'm interested in your upbringing, because for me, there didn't seem to be much of a detachment because of the insularity and the homogeneousness. I know that's not a word. I don't care. Of Utah, in that there didn't seem to be any sort of delineation. Like it was being a good person and being Mormon were mutually exclusive. And if you were not a part of that religion, then that meant that there was something wrong with you, or you weren't 100% virtuous. Like I remember I grew up in the belly of the beast. I grew up walking distance from BYU in Provo, Utah County, where 95% of the people there are white and Mormon. And so it's really hard to see a differing viewpoint or understand that people can be good and virtuous if they're not a part of the thing that you believe in. And I have spent a lot of my time trying to prove the opposite to not only my nuclear family, as well as like my extended family and a lot of the people that I grew up with. Like, no, you can be a good person without being religious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when I asked my father, because my father was a avowed atheist since for the longest time, and he still went to church. Like his deal was he went to church on Christmas and Easter. We call them Cheester Catholics, and that was it. And then mom mom is like, you take him to, and I asked my father, so why did you, like, you didn't believe in any of this stuff, so why did you have mom still take me? And dad was just like, I mean, it's still good stuff. Like, it's still like, I don't believe in the God part, but I wasn't going to tell you whether or not to believe in it, but like, it's still, and like, he trusts mom. Like, he trusts that the things that, mom is not, my mother wasn't going to take me to a fire and brimstone preacher. Like, she wasn't going to take me to a tent revivalist. She was going to take me to the Catholic, the old little Catholic man priest who's been a priest for 45 years. And, I was, regardless of all the other, like, the jokes and everything, I was an altar boy, and I didn't have, all the priests that I worked with were great. They're wonderful. You can make money on the side as an altar boy. Like if you were the altar boy during Catholic weddings or funerals or anything like that. So like you would get,
you're the Henry Hill of altar boys.
Yeah, they would straight up somebody would come up and like hand us both an envelope with like, cause there's usually two of us for like $20. And I was like, sweet. Like, little side action. Look, there's a lot of money in the Catholic Church. You just got to know where to find it. Just like the Mormon Church. But we in St. Louis, and because Missouri is a very Methodist state. St. Louis is a very Catholic
That
town.
is until the Mormon takeover in the second
Eventually,
coming.
when you come back, that's fine. Just take all the Southern, take all the Ozarks. It's fine. I don't care.
Perfect.
Yeah, but we're very Methodist in the more rural areas, and we're very Catholic in St. Louis because we're a French Catholic town. We were, New Orleans, St. Louis, Mississippi River towns. New Orleans is much more French than we are, but we mangle the French language quite a bit here. So don't worry about that. And it's not because it's not a big state, that everybody agrees like we're all Mormons here. This is where the Mormons go. There isn't, like I could leave. The Catholic Church isn't around me. Like there's churches maybe I might pass one on my bike, but it's not like I'm not getting the full immersion that I feel like you probably have in Utah, where like everything is very heavily Mormon coded. In St. Louis, even in Salt Lake City, like, again, I too live in a little blue dot enclave inside of a big red state. And we are very, like I said, we're very Catholic, but nobody really gives a shit. Like what God you believe in is not a thing. It's not one of the first 5 questions. I imagine when you're networking in Utah, like, are you Mormon is going to be something that is known within the first 3 minutes or so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially in certain sectors, like the tech sector here is huge. We've got about 30 minutes from my place. I live right outside of downtown Salt Lake, and about 30 minutes south of here is what's known as Silicon Slopes, which is basically like Silicon Valley 2.0, like huge tech startup scene, billions of dollars, and like almost, I'm not exclusively, but nearly exclusively run by like white Mormon men.
Mm-hmm. And that's, and like I said, that's something that you guys have everywhere. So
yeah, it permeates just about everywhere outside of in Utah, and it's also why I choose to live where I do, because there is like it's a bit of a respite. It's it's unavoidable, but it's a lot less than say if I were still living in Provo.
But what about just leaving Utah completely? Do you ever consider that?
Yeah, my wife and I lived in Philadelphia for a little while, and I love that place. But as much as of a beef as I have with a lot of problems that bother me about Utah, it is still home. And it's, one of the things, like I'm a big outdoors guy. I ride my bike all the time. I'm up in the mountains with my dog 3, 4, 5 times a week. I can access that from my front door. And like, you can't get that access anywhere else. Like it's pretty unparalleled. And just like the overall beauty of like, you can go from like an alpine, like incredible mountain landscape to like the most incredible deserts you've ever seen in your life in 3 hours. As also like, this is where my family and my friends are, and where my wife's family and friends are. So like, and if we're picking a place to raise our kid, you could do a hell of a lot worse than Salt Lake.
Yeah. It's, for all of its Mormonness, like Utah is not a terrible place. And I have the same thing. So I went down to Jackson, Missouri, which is in southern Missouri yesterday, because it was like right smack in the middle of the eclipse, like all of the totality. So like the center of it passed right over me.
Hell yeah.
So I found that middle sweet spot, and that was great. And while I was going down there, of course, huge traffic jams trying to get into the path of totality. The highways that are going down there, of course, are under construction. Like, why wouldn't they be? So I went and ran down a lot of state highways, some lettered highways, those ones that are just, sometimes you can pass a guy, sometimes you might get stuck behind a combine, all these kinds of things. And every time I do that, because like my wife and I have been talking about leaving Missouri too, because it just keeps getting more and more red, and it's not getting any better. And there's no like, oh, well, just this election will fix it all. Like it's fucked for the next 25 years. Until we so we thought like, well, we can just skip over the river. We got Illinois right there, big blue state, that, allows you to get an abortion if you want it. And, allows you to, I might have to sell a few of my guns. I guess I'll have to, register with Governor Pritzker. I suppose I can do that, but we have that like a really nice, like we can just hop over here. We can get Alton, Illinois is very weird. Like it's one of those little towns. It's just like, no, we want all the weird people to come here. They have a huge, like, apothecary witchy shop. They have a lot of antique malls and stuff. So they're building up, but they're still cheap. You can get a good house for $150K.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Bro, what
is that like?
I have a 1,200 square foot house with a detached garage that I could fit 2 small cars into it if I wanted, and a open basement that is not finished, but it is there. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, $110K.
That's unbelievable.
I have had I have had to put about 25 to 30K in it since, because it was a rental house. The kitchen fell apart, so I had to redo that. Air conditioner, gutters, just had to replace the furnace. So trust me, there's always something that's breaking inside of the house.
I own a home as well, and it's an old
so this pain.
Piece of shit. I'm in the process. I will be in the throes of remodel as long as I own this place.
Yeah.
And as soon as like if you're a homeowner, as soon as you fix one problem, another one arises, and like it's just this never-ending cycle.
It is nice though that like at this point, like don't get me wrong, paying out the nose for a lot of stuff, but it is nice to be like, okay, so in the last 4 years, since 2020, I've replaced the water heater, I've replaced the air conditioning compressor, I've replaced the furnace, I've replaced the gutters. I had an office built in the back, where I pod check from, and I've had all these things, and it's like, okay, and I've inspected my roof. I've had my roof inspected. It's good. I can probably get another 7 to 10 years out of that.
Nice.
And I just rebuilt the kitchen, and it's like, okay, there's nothing else that can break. But I don't say that out loud inside of the house, because then it'll hear me. But
sure.
It's just like, okay, all the things that suck when they break and you have to deal with it, you're like, oh man, those things are at least fixed. So anything else from here, right, is an earthquake dropping it into the basement, and I get the insurance money anyway. So fuck it.
It's just it all comes with the territory of owning a home, and I have a hard time bitching, being that I'm a millennial who's a homeowner.
It's and I'm going to tell you, Greg, like the Twitter's not real life. So
no,
there's
it's not. No.
I meet lots of people who aren't angry people on the internet, who are
That's what Twitter
posting.
Is for.
I know.
Twitter is for being angry and unhinged, and the people who can't, delineate that from real life are sickos.
Exactly, but there's plenty of people out there who are owning homes, and like I said, man, come to St. Louis. You can come buy my house. I'll move over to Illinois, where the tax.
Do you have mountains? That's the thing that I need.
Well, don't have the mountains that you want, because we have the Ozarks down south.
You've got hill country.
Yeah, they are a mountain range, but they are not the mountains that you're looking for. All right. So, Greg, let's do some Ask a Dad questions.
Sure. I love this.
Yeah, I asked the Patreon, the Discord. So if you are a member of my Patreon or Joe's at Lions Led by Donkeys, you are in our Discord, and you can ask questions like this one. What questions terrify you most coming from your child?
Man, that's interesting. I really don't want this to sound trite, but there's not a lot that scares me. I really do try to have a very open, honest relationship with my son. And like in almost every walk of life, of course at 6, you try to protect him from certain things. But, if he has questions even about his body or anything else, we try to have a conversation and put it in terms that he can understand. And I do that because I want to have that open line of communication, and I want to be able to set that level of trust very early in his life. So as he grows and as he matures and as his life gets more complicated, he can feel like he doesn't have to hide that. I felt like I had to do that growing up. And, it manifests itself in weird ways. And I wish I would have been able to have that relationship with my parents, especially, with my dad, that I could come to him with certain things like that. I want to lay that foundation and be like, we can talk about anything.
My father was not neglectful, but like I was the third. I was born when he was 41, and my older sister who came before me kind of ran him through the ringer, like when she went through puberty. So like at a certain point, my dad just kind of laid on the couch, which is, and again, he's very active. He does a lot of stuff. He and I have a great relationship, but there was a certain amount of time where he's just like, can I just please fucking read my newspaper? And we did a lot of really cool stuff, but I never really did feel that like I could be open with him. But I don't know. That's just, it's not like he was ever like, don't ask me any questions, but I just didn't feel, I don't know, I didn't really have any questions. It wasn't until like I was in my 20s that he was like, oh, by the way, you should watch out for depression because it runs in the family. Like that would have been really cool to hear.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I have that same, I don't want to, there's nothing that I like. There are things, because I have a daughter. So when, she has her period, I'm going to be like, your mother is going to be a much better resource for this. I am not saying don't come to me. I'm saying that I am not the best person to go for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time as the person who had to brush her hair, and I'm like, I've literally like never had hair longer than 2 inches. Why is this on me?
Right? Yeah. And I think that's not a bridge I'll ever have to cross because I don't have a daughter. Yeah, but on the opposite side of the spectrum, I am the one that he's going to come to, and I want that to be the case. I really do want there to be that level of trust and that open line of communication.
I feel like the biggest fear is I'm just like worried that like, when you have a son and you're a person who's just like, I understand like how shitty dudes can be, and you're like, I need to raise you to not be a shitty dude, because let me tell you something, if I had a son, I was a shitty dude in my 20s. Like I'm in my 40s now. Yeah, so it's just like, fuck, how do I like when you recognize like your own shit and you're just like, I need to be able to make it so that you at the age of 21 don't become a raging alcoholic who's depressed, because I went through all of that and it sucks. And I feel like hopefully now we have a better chance of catching that and turning it around.
That really is like the crux of my parenting philosophy that we talked about early on in this episode. Is I try to be that consultant and the person he can come and talk to, and we can break down different scenarios and talk about repercussions and lead him to be able to make his own decisions and then face the consequences. The whole reason I'm doing that is that by the time he's 18 or 21 and like on his own or whatever the case may be, he has those skills that he can make his own decisions and he can face the world and he can be independent and understand, like really have a holistic view of what the experience and the decisions that he's making entail. I'm really trying to do what I can to make him as independent as possible. I think that's the ultimate goal. Cause yeah, I was the same way. I had no idea how to navigate, and yeah, guilty as charged of being a shitty dude in my 20. And, and like I look at it now, and, I had, before I met my wife, like I had some relationships where I feel like I made every mistake you could make in the book and was just a real piece of shit. And I don't want him to have to do that same thing. And like, that is kind of the problem with the human experience, is that we are also experiential learners. And to try to give him as many scenarios that he can learn from experience is crucial.
Mm-hmm. So here's another also just as important question. How early do you get to the airport?
2 hours.
You're a 2 hour guy?
I'm at least, yeah. I try to have that window. We bring the tablet. I bring my novel. I'm a screen addicted millennial, so I can always just go through my phone. I very much try to, err on the side of caution and better safe than sorry. That was drilled into me by my dad.
Now, how often do you fly?
A couple times a year. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a ton. My wife travels a lot more than I do.
Yeah. So we do travel a lot, and I travel for work sometimes.
Yeah.
And I've discovered my wife and I have discovered our backwards math that we can do. So we know it's going to take like 20 to 25 minutes to get to the thing. We're going to have to park. And it's going to take this amount of time for the shuttle to get there. We're looking at the TSA pre-check because we're all pre-check because spending that extra bucks to get through. So we know like we're comfortable hitting like an hour beforehand. Like we can squish it down, and also we have a very small airport in St. Louis. It's not hard to navigate. We're going Southwest has its own terminal. We always fly Southwest, so we just get right in there. A lot of times we travel without luggage, but we have it down pat, so we can be like, no, as long as we're hitting the airport an hour before wheels up. So like even a half hour before it buttons up, we can make it. And we'll put a little extra time in there if there is. But sometimes when you're flying at like 6 a.m. and you're trying to do the math of like when do I have to wake up?
Yeah. That there's always like extenuating circumstances.
All right, how long is too long to keep something that's worn out just on principle, like a wallet that needs to be replaced, but you just keep using it until it falls apart and becomes useless?
Oh man, see, I'm not much of like a sentimental guy. I replace stuff like that. Like
I replaced my wallet. I don't have my wallet, but I replaced my wallet because I was at a leather store in Branson, Missouri, and they had red leather. And one thing that pisses me off in my office is that everything is black. The desktop is black, mouse is black, my glasses are black rimmed, but everything is black. So you lose stuff on here constantly. But if I have a big red wallet, I can find it wherever it's at. Like I'm to an age where like my style is I need to be able to find this. I don't care how cool I look doing it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way as well. It's like I am like, just for example, like I'm a big guy. I'm 6'5". I'm like 230, 235. I have weird proportions, and it's hard as hell to shop for me. So like when I find something that fits and find something that I like, I will buy it in every color and like buy multiple versions of it. Like I have a pair, like I have these Lululemon joggers I'm wearing right now. I have them in I have like 4 or 5 different pairs of them in different colors because they're like the one thing that fit me. But to the whole like throwing things out, I have a rule that like if I haven't worn something in 6 months, it's gone. And I have a really good relationship. We have a local mutual aid that's just like 20 minutes down the road from me, and I will throw that thing in a bag, and I will usually do a run once a quarter down there. And, we'll clean out our closets. My kid is 6 and he's growing like a weed, and he's a single child. We'll do that. Yeah. I'm not really one for sentimentality, and I don't like to keep stuff. And I'm kind of like a bit of a minimalist in that. Like I hate clutter. I'm a bit OCD about stuff like that. I like things organized, tight, neat, clean. And if it's not that way, then like I get really anxious and it bothers me. So
well, and I can see that you managed to have still a collection though, because you got what looks like stickers and stuff on your back wall.
Yes, I have collections of stuff.
Now I am messy, but I also don't like clutter. So mine are enamel pins. I have them all over the place. So just little thing. It's find little things that you can collect. Don't collect Funko Pops because you're gonna have to dust those things for the rest of your life, man. Don't mess with that.
That's like I feel like every dad has like his weird dad hobby, or like. Yeah.
Or their little collection, little thing, just like,
little things. Yeah. I collect.
They have stickers over here. I want to take a look at what they have. Yeah.
And so like anytime I go anywhere, I'll get a sticker, and it's like a cool way to like remember, oh yeah, that was that trip, we took to, San Francisco. And I remember like we went to that cool brewery, and like, it's just a way to kind of like collect memories. And yeah, it's just my
I tell you,
weird little nerd hobby.
Yeah, my wife and I go to Savers, which is a secondhand store.
Yeah,
and
we have a Savers here.
You have Savers, yeah. So every time we wrote last time we were there, we noted like one of those collectible bell collections. So you can always tell when like a grandma dies and everybody's like, get these fucking bell, oh look, a bell from Philadelphia. Why? What are you gonna do with that? But people like to collect what they like to collect, I guess. So how do you find how do you find space to enjoy time with your partner and friends? How did you navigate finding a babysitter?
Again, one of the big reasons why we live in Salt Lake is family. And so my sister loves to spend time with her nephew. My mom loves to come and watch. So we tap into family resources. My wife's sister lives, 10 minutes down the road from us as well. And then, we have a little network. One of the things that I'm really grateful for is, now that my kid is in kindergarten, we have a community of not only like-minded, but similar in age, like young parents with young children. And we tap into them as well. Like we really have this whole community, which has also become a network, and like we have a big group text and like, hey, I'm stuck at work. Do you mind picking up my kid? And I'll pick him up, when I'm finished, and just little things like that. So I can always tap into that resource as well. So I have like multiple avenues that I can kind of go through and exhaust. And like very, very rarely, if I go through this whole, this Rolodex, can I not find someone who can watch my kid for a couple hours? And then as far as like intimacy, we really do try to prioritize that. And, we're not sending calendar invites.
Right.
But we really do have to find time. It's like, oh,
you got to schedule it.
Yeah, we really do. And like, and it's just.
Absolutely. That is something I tell people is like put date night or whatever you want to call it, put it on a schedule.
Yes.
And it's not saying you can't go outside of that schedule, but at least you have it scheduled once a week. Exactly. You hang out, you spend some time together.
And even sometimes like my wife and I, it's not elaborate. It can be as something as like, hey, we're going to take our phones, we're going to put them in the other room, we're going to pop some popcorn, and we're going to watch a movie in bed. And it's not like glamorous. It's not big time expensive date night. But what it is time that we have together, and even little things like, it doesn't even that. We can just put our phones away and just sit and like chat and just hang out and see where each other are at. I like, the number one rule that I have in the relationship with my wife is we try to make it more difficult to stay silent than to say something. And so there's always that communication, because I think like trust, honesty, communication, and collaboration are really like the 4 pillars to a solid relationship, alongside making time.
Yeah. Not to get all man advice on everybody, but that is a, yeah. And some people like a schedule works. Like, for me, it's putting together a bunch of snacks and sitting on the couch with my wife and putting on Doctor Who. Well, like we might, she might be crocheting something and I might be on the Switch, but we're together, we're hanging out, we're parallel playing, we're talking. Like, we talk during the entire thing too. So it's you got to find those times, because we do kind of do ourselves a disservice, because our child was so easygoing. She's great to go anywhere. So we just took her everywhere. And then what happens is she's almost 9 and she still doesn't like sleeping over anywhere. She can't sleep over at her grandma's house, and we can drop her off and she can be there for a couple of hours. And we have those options too. But yeah, it's always just been so much easier to just be like, no, just take the kid with us and we'll be fine. And
yeah, we do that a lot too.
Yeah, but what you're missing out on is, my wife and I, we like to do it so that we can brainstorm what we're working on. Podcast, crocheting, the store, the other events that we're going to do. It's our chance to sit and not be interrupted by a child constantly.
My wife and I do one-on-ones together, like a couple times, just like check-ins during the week of like, okay, what do you have going on? Like, what is your schedule like? Who needs to, pick up the boy from school? Who needs to take him to his after school activity, that kind of stuff. Or be like, hey, I'm super busy on Wednesday and we need to go to the grocery store. Do you have time for that? Like, just little mini check-ins to make sure that we've got all of our I's dotted and T's crossed. And even that time of just being together, collaborating on day-to-day stuff, I think is also really important.
Yeah. And sometimes just stop and give your partner a hug. Just have a good 15-second hug.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Going back to our like religious, basis that we were talking about in the whole 10 commandments, the older I get, I realize that it's just really simple to be a good person. And like, just the number one rule in life is just don't be a dick.
Yeah. Leave people alone. Just leave them alone to do what they want.
And just like treat people with like a baseline of respect and like just like you will get so much further in life. I feel like such like an alpha male dickhead for saying this, but it really is. You will get so much further in life just being kind and empathetic and using like a baseline of manners than like being rough and tough and like a dick at all times.
So what's something from your childhood that you loved and you're excited about sharing with your kid?
Oh man, it's a different world right now. But one of the things I really loved about my childhood, I grew up in like a very safe, like homogenized neighborhood. I loved my independence as a kid. And like my mom in the summertime was like very good. She would get us up, she would feed us, and she would kick us out of the house. And she would be like, okay, 8:30 a.m., I have shit to do. Go away. Come back at lunch. And we would get on our bikes and we would go hike up in the hills and we would hang out with the neighborhood friends and explore and just do what like little kids are supposed to do. We would ride our bike to the rec center and we would swim all day, and then we would come home before it got dark. And I loved that. I loved that freedom. I loved that independence. And while it is a different world, growing up now, and I don't think that I can give him that level of independence, I want to try to give him as much as he can. And I want to like expose him to as many things as possible. At 6 years old, I have no idea who this kid is going to end up being. But my wife and I have made a very conscious effort in trying to expose him to as many things as he wants. Like, have a rule. He's going to do some sort of extracurricular activity. What that is completely contingent upon him. Like, I made a promise to my wife. I played sports all through high school. I was a college football player. Like, athletics were like a big part of my life. I refuse to be sports dad. I'm not going to do that. So one thing my dad did to me that like I still have resentment for, and has made my therapist a ton of money, is that I want him to do something, but he needs to make that decision himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our daughter is, she does Irish dance, and that has been there's been a lot of tears over it, but she still does it and she's still good at it. And there's so many times we're just like, fuck, do we just let her quit? And no, you can't let an emotional 8-year-old quit and get out of that. That was mine was going to be DuckTales, but yours sounds way cooler. So
DuckTales, I love DuckTales as well.
I like that they are, like DuckTales has come back. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. My daughter discovered that on her own.
My kid loves that.
Yeah, she loves all the new stuff. I just got her to watch the first Batman, the 1989 Batman movie.
Oh, the Michael Keaton one?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
She was the online radio station that she listens to that plays kids music on Sirius XM was playing Party Man from Prince.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, I was just flabbergasted. I'm like, this is from a Batman movie with the Joker. And she's like, and she loves comics. So she's like, oh, is this a Batman movie I can watch? And I said, yeah, I mean, these movies are not like the Michael Keaton Batman movies were not all that, like they're violent, but they're not.
But they're not Christopher
not scary
Nolan.
Violent like Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, the Robert Pattins and stuff. Nah.
Yeah, there's no machine guns. Well, there are machine guns, but they're like cool Tommy guns and stuff. And everybody's shooting revolvers. It's got this very Dick Tracy-esque kind of feel to it.
Almost noirish in a way.
Yeah, and she loved it. She thought it was great, and I'm looking forward to they're all like this, like in various ways. And it was like, I mean, there is certainly, it gets a quality issue, but I mean, she's 9. She thinks that, a lot of terrible things are good. She thought she loved Madam Web. What am I going to do with that? I'm not going to tell her she's wrong.
My kid has gone from like Paw Patrol to Rescue Bots.
Yeah, we did. She's rotating back to Rescue Bots at the moment.
To Miraculous Ladybug, which is some insane show on Netflix. And now it's very funny. He's gotten into Is This Cake? I don't know if you watched that show.
Yes.
He's obsessed with that and like wants to bake now. My wife and I are like, we're going to set something up here in the very near future of like baking cakes with him and trying to make it as realistic as possible, despite both of us being like completely amateur bakers.
The cake is the easy part. You follow the directions on the box.
Yes.
It's the decorating. It's
afterwards. The fondant and the other stuff.
Yeah.
I already know I'm gonna fuck it up, which is I'm fine with. But it's the experience.
Start with icing and a little bit of food coloring, and go from there.
Yeah.
All right. So here's one that's a little bit heavier. The partner and I are in the process of deciding if we want to have a kid. I worry that I'm not able to handle existing responsibilities and raising the child. I also have anxiety that I won't be a good father and that I'm not capable. What's the best way to deal with these irrational personal insecurities? Were you ready to have a kid when you had a kid?
I was. Yeah. And I will say I was like very staunchly anti-kid in my 20s. Didn't really even want a kid until I met my wife. And I think
I was fucking embarrassing with my wife, like in our early age, just like I would get drunk and be like, our babies will be so smart and beautiful. And my wife's like, I like, hooked up with this guy once and then he went back to Iraq, this fucking freak, but she married me. So, who's laughing now?
I think, I was just like, especially throughout my 20s, like I was just so into like my independence and my freedom and I got my shit going on. And, you meet the right person and your perspectives broaden. So I think my advice to this guy is I think you gotta talk to someone about this, be it a therapist. You got to have a conversation with your wife or your partner about this and be very open about it. And like, you have to have that tough conversation and kind of, be introspective and like, ask yourself, is this something I want? Is this something I'm capable of? Like you have to, and then, I will say, if you're going to do this and you decide that you have to commit, and it's a very long-term lifetime commitment. But you have to do that. You have to have that mindset of like, okay, we're doing this. It's going to be hard. It's going to suck at times. But also know that, at least this is completely anecdotal. This has been my experience. Being a father is the hardest job I've ever had in my entire life. It's also, by and large, the most rewarding and the thing that I love most. And if you were to put the positive and the negatives on a seesaw, the positives would very heavily outweigh the negatives. But, anybody who doesn't think that fatherhood or just being a parent isn't hard is either like you live an incredibly charmed life or you're full of shit.
It is not like when somebody says, am I capable of this? Trust me, like my child is almost 9 and I still wonder that. Am I capable of this?
I think that's normal.
Yeah, it's always changing. Kid, my 8-year-old is not the same as my 2-year-old, obviously. And there are just so many different things to consider, so many things that have to evolve. And, the concern of like, am I going to be a good father? One, I always tell dads, like, don't worry, because once you hold your baby, it's going to adjust your brain.
Dad mode kicks in like that.
Yeah. Like it was, you know that there are a lot of changes to a woman's body, obviously, not just physically, but hormonal. But it will happen to you if you are a person who is like if you're just a shitty guy who's just like, I'm not going to hang out with my wife, gives me a child. But if you're like invested in it, you're involved in it, and you're wanting this child, and you want to be there with your partner, that kid is going to come out and is going to adjust your brain chemistry. That does not mean that you're not going to want to crack the kid upside the head every once in a while. The important thing is that you don't do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just always, like I said, every day is going to be different. And, yesterday I was, like I said, I went to go see the eclipse. I was gone all day and I took that day off of work and, we were planning all to go down there. And then my wife's just like, I don't want to be stuck in all that traffic in, our stuck in the traffic in this car that's uncomfortable and she doesn't like. And it's like, I don't want to take the kid and deal with all of that stuff. And I said, that's fine. Like, I'll go on down there. And I spent the entire day down there. And even though my wife's just like, no, you should go, have fun, enjoy it, meet up with people, enjoy the totality, come back whenever, it's fine. Like, I feel guilty about it because I just like, I was gone for an entire day. And even voicing that, my wife, God bless her, is just like, no, it's fine. That's literally a once in a lifetime opportunity. To be fair, that happened to us 5 years ago too, but not going to happen again. So at least not while I'm alive. So you do like that. You're always doubting yourself, but I think that doubt is good. Like, it keeps you from getting cocky, keeps you from being like, I got this dad shit down on lock. And then like, you find out that your kid has been like flushing cars down the toilet or something, and it's all jammed up. You're like, you don't have shit figured out. Your kid still is going to be an absolute brat, and you're kind of fucked. Sorry.
Yeah. And, and that's, I think you take that stuff in stride and realize, yeah, it's okay. And it's natural to have a healthy fear. But then on the, the inverse of that, realize that like, you can do this. This is what humanity has been doing now for thousands of years.
Keep in mind, 150 years ago, people were just like, oh, I have too many mouths to feed. Some of you children have to just disappear. Like, I cannot feed you. Fuck off and figure it out. Or you're 8 years old. You're going to go work in the factory that tears children's arms off. Like,
or what is it like that opening scene in Unforgiven where the guy just like looks at his kids. He's like, oh, I'll be gone for 3-4 months.
Right.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's just like, sorry, kid. Like, as long as you're not doing that, as long as you're not, going out to get the pack of cigarettes and never coming back, and as long as you are understanding that, like, the human mind is rational, even if it might be irrational at the moment. So you don't, just keep that in mind. This is your kid. You love them. You're going to be fine. It's not. You are going to fuck up. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, you absolutely will. But I have a philosophy and on this, and I think you can kind of extrapolate it out to like your professional life and other things. Is like, making a mistake is totally fine. And in fact, it should be welcomed, and it's because it's inevitable. You're going to fuck up. What you try to do in just about every walk of life, and especially as a parent, is to not repeat that same mistake over and over again, because there are differences between mistakes and problems. And I identify, problems as mistakes being done over and over and over again. So hopefully, like, you fuck up once, you learn from it, you move on, it doesn't happen again. And, everyone walks away a better person because of it.
Exactly. Greg, you have other podcasts. Tell us about your podcast.
I do. Yeah. So I do a left-leaning, culture and politics podcast that's very Utah based called Brigham Young Money, with two of my best friends, Jordan, who has been on your show before, as well as Kyle. And we talk about national and local politics and kind of what's in the news. And, we riff and bullshit and talk a lot about how bad the world is. And then I also do a podcast with a dear friend of mine, Sarah Todd, who is the Utah Jazz and NBA beat writer for our local paper of record, the Deseret News. And we talk NBA and basketball and the Utah Jazz. And, we also do everything we can to not just stick to sports. So we'll talk a lot about different issues, but for the most part, it's basketball focused.
Right on. Greg, I appreciate you joining us. So all of those listening, thank you for listening. If you are wanting more of this content, we have 7 years of Patreon, that back catalog that you can listen to. $5 a month gives you access to everything, gets you access to Discord. All of the links that Greg mentioned will be down in the show notes, so you can go check those out. You should also give Greg $5 a month for his Patreon. Give everybody $5 a month. But keep a few of them for yourself, I suppose. But Greg, thank you so much. Everybody, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, pleasure was all mine. Thank you.